When I heard Spike Lee was remaking High and Low, it's safe to say I had some concerns. Kurosawa's High and Low is, no exaggeration, one of the best films ever made, with the best blocking in film history and beautiful cinematography, interesting social commentary, fantastic performances. It stands as the best example of a police procedural to this day. Now, the last time Spike Lee remade a classic Asian film was Oldboy, and I don't know how to accurately describe how bad the remake of Oldboy is compared to the Park Chan-wook original, but let's just say Spike Lee is to Oldboy 2003 what Cliff Booth was to The Manson Girls. That movie is borderline unforgivably bad, and so with his foray back into Asian cinema remakes, did Spike Lee screw the pooch the same way as he did last time? Let's talk about it. Spoilers for both this movie and the Kurosawa original.
Can you handle the money? Can you handle the success? Can you handle the failure? Can you handle the lovers? Can you handle the memes? Can you handle everything that there is in between?
So in case you don't know, the story of High and Low is a rich businessman has his son kidnapped and held for ransom, and he's ready to pay basically all the money he has to get his son back when it's discovered that the kidnappers accidentally took his driver's son, and now the rich businessman has to contend with, am I going to give away my life savings to save the life of a kid who isn't my kid? Spoilers, he eventually does, and then the second half of the movie is the detectives, led by the GOAT Tatsuya Nakade, tracking down the kidnapper. It's wonderfully done and thematically rich, but that's the general plot outline, and this film follows that general outline as well. Sort of. So cards on the table, straight up, this is not as atrocious as the Oldboy remake is. It still has plenty of problems, which we'll talk about, but it is generally just more competent. It is trying to do something somewhat different with the premise, which also makes it feel less pointless. That being said, it's still kind of ass. Before I get into comparing it to the original, just as a movie itself, it's impossible to overstate how heavily Denzel is carrying this movie. So much charisma, honestly sometimes a little too much charisma, we'll get to that, but he makes this movie watchable. Without him, this would be a slog to get through. Denzel makes this movie. There are others here that are solid as you'd expect, but unfortunately, how good Denzel is really highlights how bad some other actors are in this movie, namely Ilfenish Hadera. I don't remember seeing her in anything before, so maybe she's usually great, maybe she just had a bad day at the office here, but some of these scenes, man. Alright, you've just found out your son has been kidnapped, just give me a reaction to that. Yep, that's great. Your disbelief and shock look more like annoyance. It's kind of a War of the Worlds ass reaction, but yep, no, we're good. Like, that's the take you used?
Where is he? Where is my son? Trey, my baby.
And A$AP Rocky is surprisingly not that bad for most of it, considering he's not a professional actor. When he's just talking shit to Denzel, he's okay for the most part. But when he has to have a genuine moment of fear and despair, when he wants to die, yeah, it doesn't go great.
Come on, man, I want to be here. Let me go. What? Let me die. Where's my money? Let me die, man.
You just said you were fine.
Let me die.
It'd be hard for most actual actors to pull off this completely genuine, just let me die moment from a character who's been confident and aggressive and kind of nonchalant. To give this sort of moment to a non-professional actor, you're asking for it to end up embarrassing. Anyway, last note on the cast, I'm waiting for Ice Spice's Oscar nom for her work here. She actually wasn't bad in the one scene she was in. Let me switch gears here for a sec so this video isn't just a total bitching fest. One thing that I can appreciate about this is that it did take the premise of High and Low in a different direction. In my opinion, the worst thing a remake can do is just do the same story again, but worse, without any differences. Like, why'd you remake it then? And considering the original High and Low is all about societal hierarchy, and the setting is post-war Japan, taking that kind of theme, but changing the setting to the 2025 New York music scene, gives an opportunity to explore different ideas. It is an interesting idea to use that premise to talk about social media and grinding and clout chasing. There's something there. The best scene in the film is when Denzel finally confronts A$AP Rocky in the studio, and they have a conversation that touches on real versus fake, their different places in the world, fathers. They go in and out of rap battling. Individually, that's a pretty great scene, and it shows how you can remake something differently and have it be good in its own way. The iconic ending of High and Low is when Gondo finally meets the kidnapper in prison, and they have this discussion through the glass, and it's very emotional and poignant, and this parallels that scene while being its own thing. Pretty clever, honestly, down to the glass between them. However, this is then emblematic of another problem with the film, because then shortly after the scene, we get the actual jail scene, which just feels completely redundant now. You had done a version of this that was interesting. Now you're just going to do a direct parallel to the original, down to the shot composition. It's A, not needed, and B, does you no favors, because it reminds anyone who's seen the original how much better done and how much deeper that original is. The end of High and Low perfectly caps the movie's themes, as any good ending should, while also being a harrowing and kind of ambiguous scene in itself. The kidnapper sentenced to death is trying to convince Gondo he's not scared until he breaks down. In the scene, we learn more about him, and Gondo asks questions that the audience might be thinking as well. It's not a happy ending. We don't feel happy the villain is defeated. You almost feel sorry for him. Life may have been hell for him because of his poverty, as he says. The wealth disparity is the recurring theme of the film. But also, was it more that he's just a disturbed person? Was it that he was a disturbed person who lived in bad conditions, and that exacerbated his mental illness? He ties what he did to his class situation, but he also held a working man's child for ransom. He killed people who were lower than him in the societal hierarchy without a second thought, which shows his own hypocrisy. So you're left to think, was he a crusader for the poor? Was he a disturbed person who used that as an excuse? Did poverty speed up that process? Is it a combination of everything? We're left with these questions like Gondo, staring at his own reflection. We, like him, have to reckon with the role we play in this societal chain, and who this kid really was. It's a brilliant ending to a brilliant film. Here, we don't really learn anything new. The moral ideas of the film are spit in your face with no room for you to come to any nuanced conclusions yourself, and A$AP Rocky doesn't come across as complicated in the same way or sympathetic at all. It's a little bit about modern societal hierarchy and clout chasing and social media and what it can turn someone into, but it's also just kind of like Denzel is cool and this guy's a crazy asshole at the end. And on that note, the film doesn't tie its themes together very well, or have very convincing character arcs. Denzel's character for large parts of this film is a total asshole. He's not likable at all. When his friend's son is kidnapped, he is more concerned about being cancelled for not paying the ransom. He seemingly does not give a shit about the kid or his well-being. When his friend comes to ask him for the money, he doesn't just say no, he makes a whole show of how much of an asshole he thinks his friend is being, while his friend's son is kidnapped and probably gonna be killed. And this is a fine setup for a redemption arc. Gondo in the original is also an asshole, but that's kind of the whole point of the first half of that film. Him coming to terms with the moral quandary he's in. Is this savvy businessman gonna give up everything to save his driver's kid? And you see that development in him. You see how the people around him influence his choice. Here, Denzel is borderline sociopathic. Same with his son. They have a whole conversation about how this is really hard for them, because people on Twitter are gonna say they got this kid killed.
Social media, TikTok, IG, voicemail, stuff online. I'm getting DMs like I should have been the one that got snatched. You don't understand. Media takeout. Black Twitter is dogging me out. All my friends are gonna think I'm the reason my best friend was murdered in cold blood. Come on. You know what that means? How can I go back and finish high school? What colleges are gonna accept me, Dad?
Not a second of concern for the kid himself. Kind of insane to watch, to be honest. And then Denzel just kind of turns around and agrees to pay seemingly out of nowhere, really. There is a scene later on when he's called out for how callous he was before, but it's not really presented as a big moment or Denzel regrets it. He's more mad about it.
That the bad PR would pass if Kyle died.
That was different. I was talking out loud, you know that. I was just trying to figure things out.
And then by the end, he's like, I just need to spend more time with my family and focus less on the grind and whatnot. But we never really got from this point to that point naturally. The arc of going from someone who cares more about business and social media than a kid's life to someone who's more empathetic and wants to spend more time with his family could be great. That's a hell of an arc right there. But here it seems almost more incidental, like Denzel has that arc in the background. For such a big thing, the movie does not give it enough attention. I don't need a big scene where Denzel realizes the error of his ways, but it almost feels like the movie doesn't comprehend how insane it is that we have multiple scenes talking about the Twitter backlash of this kid dying instead of the kid dying itself. And they play this piano music over those scenes that make it feel like we're supposed to feel sorry for these characters and not be thinking about the kidnapped, ransom-held kid. That's also what I meant earlier about maybe Denzel is a bit too charismatic. He's a bit too cool in this. I think we needed a bit more vulnerability from him to buy this arc that he goes through. I think we needed more moments where he reflects a bit on how shitty he's been. We barely get any of that, because when he comes out the other side, I don't feel like I've been on that journey with him at all. Unlike in the original. It's the same general beats as the original, but it doesn't have the same impact. And not to do too much of the comparison thing here, because it is its own movie, but also when you're remaking a movie, you invite some comparison. The lack of real mystery or build-up to the second half of the film compared to the original is very noticeable. Like, it's so engaging and satisfying watching them piece together ways to find the kidnapper in the original. Here it's more like, what if they were cool guys out for revenge? I'll be honest, they're also just stupid movie moments. Like the details that went into crafting the police procedural in the first one, clues and data, and it related thematically with them interviewing working class people. It was great. Here, the linchpin is when A$AP Rocky kidnaps this kid, he's playing his own song constantly. That song is ass, by the way.
At 35, and I'm still a pretty guy.
And then when they get the kid back, they're interviewing him and they're like, okay, do you remember anything that could help us identify the kidnapper? And he goes, well, the only thing is that he was playing this exact song over and over again that I remember the exact lyrics of. And they immediately go, yeah, all right, shut up, kid. Tell us when you got something useful. Like the way detectives would only act in a bad movie. Same when Denzel recognizes the song and the voice and everything. Now, I have a few specific scenes I want to talk about, / complain about, I'm sorry Spike Lee, but the dropping of the money scene is an example of what Spike Lee did a lot in Oldboy, which is taking the idea of a scene and not understanding what actually made it good. The drop scene in the original is so iconic because it's tense, the kidnapper's plan is really clever and you discover it as the characters do, the police are trying to gather evidence which will be pertinent for the rest of the film, you feel the stakes, Gondo's money, the kid. It's also just very well made. Here, it's just a really long scene of build-up to Denzel dropping the money, like just Denzel riding the train, because the original had a long drop-off scene, so we gotta have a long drop-off scene, but it has none of the tension, and that is also partially because, and honestly this could be the main point of this video, the music in this film may be the worst in a movie I've seen in years. I know Spike Lee loves music, I know he comes from a musical family, so I realize this might be contentious, the music was very intentional, obviously, but I honestly think this movie genuinely could have been, like, remarkably better. Like, it could have gone from bad to decent if it didn't have this music. In the first half, you have this royalty-free sad piano music over, like, every fucking scene.
My ankle's kind of sore from doing suicides up and down the court. It's not serious, it's just...
What you gonna do about it?
That make the entire thing feel cheap, cheesy, sappy, and then over the drop scene and the final chase scene, they play this genuinely grating music that sounds like some medieval fair-ass dance scene from Tangled type music. It completely ruins the atmosphere. I grant you, I don't know much about music, so maybe there's a deep, intricate reason for why this was chosen, but I'm just telling you the effect it had on the movie, it borderline destroys it. The vibe of Denzel going to drop off the money should be tense. He's giving away his whole life to save his friend's kid. His money's on the line, the kid's on the line. And instead, it's whatever this is. I can't even describe the vibe this music gives the scene. And same with the final chase scene. It should be dramatic and have you on the edge of your seat. Is Denzel gonna catch him? Is A$AP Rocky gonna shoot him? And they're playing this, like, garbage music. It destroys any possibility of atmosphere. I don't normally speak this definitively, but, like, this was a mistake. It's clearly a choice, and it was a mistake. I don't know if it was trying to pay homage to the 60s thriller type of music with this style, but it doesn't mesh with the vibe of the rest of the movie at all. And it's a poor version of this kind of music. It's just genuinely unpleasant to listen to on top of ruining the scenes. It sounds cheap. Also, not that this is a big point against this movie, but just as an aside, I actually noticed when rewatching the original before this came out, how there's basically no music for the first half. And the first time the score kicks in is when they get the kid back. And because they've held off with it for so long, it's very dramatic and makes the moment more impactful. I realize how this sounds. Who am I to talk to Spike Lee like this? I don't want to talk down to someone who has made genuine cinema. He obviously understands film. But also after Oldboy, I gotta say, I feel like it's fair game to call out some things where he might not understand why it was good in another film. So look, if you haven't seen the original High and Low, it's hard to say if this will be better or worse for you. Yes, it has some interesting ideas and cool moments. Denzel driving around to the boss is objectively cool, but it doesn't really tie those ideas together in a satisfying way, and also it's oddly structured. The original is oddly structured, but it works because of how meticulously it's put together. So watching it with the original in mind, it was sort of interesting to see how they did it, but because they basically ditch all the procedural stuff, it feels sort of flat and anticlimactic. There's no real twists or the putting together of pieces like in the original, so it feels kind of one note. I can imagine quite a few people finding this boring, and I wouldn't blame them. Ultimately, I don't think it's a terrible movie. I don't think it's a desecration of the original or a crime against cinema like Oldboy is. But I do think considering how great Spike Lee has been at various points in his career, to get something from him that has this many obvious issues is gonna be a bit disappointing. And it's extra disappointing to not capitalize fully on what you could do by remaking this film in a modern setting. And sometimes being beholden to the original while not understanding what made its structure or certain scenes work. All in all, it's a bit of a mess. I'll give highest to lowest 2 stars. So those are my thoughts on highest to lowest and how it compares to the original. What did you think of all this? Let me know down below in the comments. While you're at it, be sure to like this video, check out my Instagram at BHL_Hudson, my Letterboxd at RealBHLHudson, and subscribe for more videos like the one you just watched. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.